got 152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
That's dirt.
Yo, what's up, gang? It is an honor to be with you here tonight. My name is Joe Idone. My partner right there is John Haslbauer, and you have made your way to the Preferred Lines podcast for the final major of the 2025 season. Early morning, coffee viewing, Open Championship, the luxurious and historic scenes around Northern Ireland at Royal Portrush. We will dive into the course preview. We will sift through every range of the odds board, and we're going to give you some picks that will hopefully win the 2025 Open Championship. Lift up that Claret Jug. John, you are back from California. It is great to see you, my friend. I'm super fired up to do this show tonight. How are you?
Yes, sir. You know, I am envious of the West Coast for NFL season, waking up and having football. I am not envious of them last week into this week. You really I went to bed at 11, 20 minutes before everybody teed off. And then I woke up and most of the guys had finished. Thankfully, Sunday, there was something up with actually Sunday was kind of brutal too, because they had to start earlier. I was up early anyway for a flight, but I was like, man, if you're on the West Coast, you just kind of miss this. I don't know how you adjust your schedule for it. But I did get to see a lot of it. I know we were both on Fitz last week, so we got a little bit of a sweat.
Yep.
We weren't on Goddard Up, good credit to him. But I'm pumped up for the Open, man. This is the last, like you said, it's the last major. It's our last chance to hit a big one. And it's a good course. I know we'll get into it. It doesn't have as much history as some of the other Open courses, but it's, I think, one of the most intriguing venues, and from a handicapping standpoint, one that you can actually find an edge in relative to some of the other Open championships where it's just kind of catch some good luck on a weather split.
Well, then I'm super fired up to hear what you have to say about it. As always, the show brought to you and presented each and every week from the good folks over at Rotoballer. The PGA team there has been churning out content all week for the biggest week of the summer. My article has already been published. The roundtable will be out tomorrow. Market movers on Wednesday. Promo code is LINES, LINES. That'll get you 10% off any sub over at Rotoballer. John, let's touch quickly before we shift gears to the Open, because I want to focus a lot of the show on players in the course over there in Northern Ireland. What'd you make? What was your big takeaway, I think, from the Scottish Open? Anything that you can bring from that week and sort of parlay it into some of your thoughts heading into this week?
Yeah, I'm not going to overreact too much. I think there is some buy low opportunity here for, maybe like a Robert McIntyre who didn't have his best stuff. He had an off week last week. You kind of write that off and maybe get a discount. I think it's very different style of golf going from Renaissance Club to this week. I mean, you could say it's a better test and a better prep than Valderrama, where the live guys are coming in. But yeah, I mean, this is such a approach premium week. And last week you could run it up. You could bomb it and aim for, the rough on the good side of the course and carry the bunkers. That is such a different style of play. So I'm not going to overreact too much to what we saw last week. The one thing I will focus on is the putting. I think that's consistent. You have the fescue base, you have slower greens. We're going to see more of that this week. So if you have, Goddard Up is a really good example of that. Somebody who wasn't putting great in the US goes across, overseas, all of a sudden something clicks because it's an entirely different surface. So little things like that I'll look for, but overall not overreacting too much to the Scottish.
Same with you. I think a lot thrown at him, and he kind of answered the call, having to play with Rory, early tee times, not having much experience in terms of links golf. He got put on the clock. He stumbled and had a couple little roadblocks along the way. So shout out to Chris Goddard, his second career PGA Tour victory, and I think a very bright future ahead of him. On to this week, though. Let's not waste any more time. Give me the lowdown on the Dunluce Course at Royal Portrush, which we last saw in 2019. Quick to host the 2025 Open Championship again, John. What are some of your notes on the course?
Yeah, so not much to go off of here. It was established in the late 1800s. Harry Colt comes in the 1920s. Really, creates a tournament course out of it. They host an Open Championship for the first time in 1951. And then for whatever reason, we don't see it again until 2019, where the hometown favorite Shane Lowry comes out victorious. The leaderboards don't always tell the story of a course, especially the winner is usually an outlier. But I think the leaderboard at Portrush really tells a clear picture of what it takes to contend on this course. You have your European and British locals who understand links golf. There were so many of them littered at the top of the leaderboard in 2019. You have your accurate plotters, the guys who you have to hit it straight. You can't miss left. You can't miss right. You have to hit it in the middle of the fairway. And on some holes, you have to hit the right side of a pretty narrow fairway. And if you hit the left side of it, you have no angle into the green. And so accuracy, hugely important. That's something that Shane and Fleetwood and Westwood and Tony Finau that year, all these people had in common. They're just accurate, had control of their ball, and could put it where they needed to on a string. So I'm looking for players like that again this time around. Approach play, not something that we always put the highest emphasis on in the links. If you're hitting into wind, if you're hitting into massive greens like St. Andrews, we weren't going to be weighting approach play very high that week. Years before, if it's bad weather, we've talked about this in coastal conditions, it is important to be a good ball striker. But you can also kind of get away with it if the weather's so crazy that nobody's hitting the greens in regulation. It becomes a short game contest. I don't expect that to be the case this week. I think approach play is going to be more important here than maybe any other Open Championship venue, given the smaller greens are not your traditional oversized green that you'll see at the Open Championship. There's not a lot of these holes where you can just run it up, and that's atypical at an Open Championship, right? So you kind of have to hit it high, which is interesting because you got these internal boundaries that come into play a lot. And the fourth hole, I believe it is a short, sometimes drivable par 4, where you've just got boundary and ocean right behind it. Such an interesting hole because if
fifth hole,
no, it's 5, if the wind's coming in, let's say you got 100 into that green, you got to hit a 120 shot if you're into the wind and just hope that the wind kills it. And if it doesn't, you're out of bounds. So just a lot of interesting propositions like that. And blind shots, elevation changes, there's a whole lot of nuance to this course, but it's the type of course that you would expect someone like Shane Lowry to pick up his only major championship at. So I know you and Ben talked about this in the first Preferred Lines podcast of this week, but if you could just find people who has all of Shane Lowry's qualities, I totally agree with that take. That's the type of player that you're looking for this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of bringing in some of the different stuff that I looked at. I'm going to bring up my BetSperts model here that is out now. Yours is up as well for this week, John. The top 10 of my model: Scheffler, Rahm, Hatton, Schauffele, Fleetwood, Henley, McIlroy, Morikawa, Reed, Hovland. A lot of different stuff mixed in there this week. I put a big emphasis on approach play, a big emphasis on around the green play, a lot of just looking at how players have performed putting on slower greens in the UK and Ireland and Scotland, looking at a lot of that specific around the green style stats as well. And then just sort of isolating strokes gained total in the majors. Like, how have you played coming in? I think that was a big thing for Lowry, and we'll kind of get to it. But coming in, when he won this, he had performed really well in the previous 3 majors, has not done that this year. A 40th at the Masters, missed the cut in the last 2. So I think one of the key attributes you're going to be looking for, it's not going to come out of nowhere. They're going to have to have shown up in the major championships so far this season. It's a very common trend, and particularly experience oftentimes matters in Open Championship. You got a similar sort of build or any other wrinkles to kind of throw into the cauldron there?
Yeah, I put a little bit of comp courses in here for some of the positional courses we see on the PGA Tour. I don't normally put that much weight on it in an Open Championship, but there are a few coastal, wind-exposed, short positional accuracy premium courses that I actually do think are going to translate pretty well this week. Those being Sawgrass and Pebble Beach are the 2 that come to mind most. A lot of correlation at Pebble Beach. It was Lowry and Rory, kind of going back and forth, 2 Irishmen earlier this year. Just going down, even in 2019, that was the major right before this one. In 2019, it was at Pebble and Gary Woodland won, and there was a lot of crossover with that leaderboard coming into this one. So like you said, the major performance leading in, super important. I'm kind of merging that with comp courses and just looking for the guys who play the shorter positional course as well, and driving accuracy, not putting a ton of, like, I don't want, if you're good strokes gained off the tee, but it's all coming from distance, that's not really what I'm looking for this week, because those bunkers are going to find you. The internal OB is definitely going to find you. So one of the highest like driving accuracy premiums I've put in the model this year too.
Yeah, it's interesting. What about PGA National? I've heard that floated around a couple times. I think there's a lot of comparisons in the leaderboard and guys who have had success. I don't personally see it as someone who's been to PGA National so many times and been looking pretty deep into Portrush. I don't see it. I see a lot more Pebble. What are your thoughts on that being a decent comp? Do you think it's coincidental that a lot of the same guys have played well, since we get a lot of the European guys here in Palm Beach County, or do you see some definitive course links there?
Yeah, I'm a little more coincidental on that. I will say the wind is going to impact it in a very similar way as what we'll see this week. But I feel like PGA National is a lot more of a demanding driver heavy course, where if you're like a Jake Knapp, for example, he was in contention this year, just kind of bomb it down there. You can get away with that. And that's not something that I think is going to work here. So even though it's not the longest yardage, I've always felt like PGA National is a bit misleading on the scorecard, because it is not really a plotter's course. It's somewhere where guys kind of go aggressive with the driver.
Yeah, definitely. There's zero water on the course. I mean, the internal OB kind of effectively is that in many of the instances. But all right, let's get into some players. Top of the board. Let's bring up the board for the 2025 Open Championship. Here are the favorites. Here are the guys under 30-1. You've got Scotty Scheffler, world number one, preeminent player on the planet, 5-1. Rory right behind him at plus 750. Looking for a little revenge at Royal Portrush. He grew up playing and set course records at the age of 16 albeit on a little different track. Then you got Rahm, a lot of steam over the last couple of days, 12-1 off a second on the live over in Spain. Bryson, 22-1, not much steam on him. Fleetwood, 25. Schauffele and Aberg rounding us out at 28-1. John, let's start with Scotty. Give me a take on Scotty Scheffler, pro, con. Can you get behind the price? What do you assess his chances of having a lot of success at a place like Portrush?
Yeah, really interesting this week. I almost have less, like I feel less confident in him than Rory and Rahm for the first time in a very long time.
Wow.
Yeah,
Here
just
we
based on
go.
the links history. Rory seems to be back. He looked like himself, for the last 3 weeks now. This is his, like, Rory is so motivated by the kerfluffle on one, 2019. So
Yeah.
he has been just thirsting to get back here. I know he's going to be motivated. He said he had this one circled. I truly believe when he says that's true. Scotty, I mean, we moved the goalpost for Scotty of like what we consider good and bad, for sure. We're all guilty of it, but like, he hasn't finished top 5 in an Open. So he's finished top 5 at pretty much any other event you put him in. He hasn't done it here. We still talk about the randomness of the elements. I think that's something that could frustrate him. The putter has looked bad over the last couple of weeks. He looks frustrated with it. He doesn't look in control of the putter. Putter has been a huge strength for Rory. And it's been pretty good for Rahm. I mean, it let him down, I think, at the US Open. But it's, that's one of his strengths. It's not something that you expect him to be kind of nursing coming into here. So that's maybe a little bit of a concern. Now, all of that being said, Scheffler's going to be living out of the fairway, at will here. He's still the best, like top 5, if not the best approach player here. There's still like very much importance of imagination around the greens. He's far better than anybody else on this page with short game. So it's not a fade by any means with Scotty, but I think the margin at the top is as thin as it's been in any major this year.
Yeah, look, it's just not fun to bet him 5-1. You pretty much soak up your entire card. It's our last major of the season. I want to have a little fun and bet 3 or 4 guys that'll probably end up losing to Scotty if he brings his B+ game. But like you mentioned, living out of the fairway, tiny greens with runoffs. That's right in his wheelhouse as being the best approach player. Opportunities to be creative and nippy on the around the green stuff, that's right in his wheelhouse. So I think if he maybe B+ is a stretch, but if he brings his A game, he's going to win. Now, Rory, you had a lot of good things to say about Rory. I don't have much bad. The favorite to win this event last time, I think that he's a bit of a conundrum in how he has handled historically pressure in big moments like he's going to see this week. Obviously, it went poorly last time. Not only did he make the quad on the first hole, he made a triple on his last hole of the opening round. He shot 79, proceeded to then set what would be the course record on Friday and still missed the cut. Shane broke it one day later. But a great performance in Scotland for Rory. Was that an ideal scenario for him to play really well? He's like gaining a stroke and a half putting every round he plays over the last 16 rounds. Putt really well, play really well, be right in the hunt, not win. Is that how you would draw it up for Rory if you were coming into this event?
Yeah, honestly, he didn't have to play the Scottish. I know he's won it in the past. Yeah. He didn't have to play. I mean, look at what Shane Lowry did. He played he played like every Irish golfer's dream golf week. He just went to every links course in Ireland, played them all. I wouldn't have been surprised if Rory said, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to skip this thing and really prep. And by not doing that, he actually had to do this weird thing where he was the first man out on Monday to see the course before all the fans mobbed him. He went out at 7 a.m. super early. So he is very serious about this week. He was very intentional with his prep this week. You wouldn't think the positional open venue is the best fit for Rory, but you look at what he's done this season. I will still stand by the two comps I think are the best comps for Portrush are Sawgrass and Pebble Beach, and that's where he's picked up 2 of his wins this year, right? So that's pretty interesting. And then the only time we've seen him on proper links golf this season, last week, he finishes runner-up. So obviously a ton to like, somebody that I'm going to be going to in pools and fantasy formats for leverage, because I think he's probably in this weird in-between zone where you either pay up for Scotty or you take the trendy pick and Rahm, and he might get lost here. But I fully expect him to be in it. I think we haven't seen the Scotty versus Rory duel, down the stretch in a big, meaningful event. It's crazy we haven't gotten that. Yeah. This could be the week. I would not be surprised if all the favorites are there by the end of the week.
Yeah, we haven't. I don't even remember seeing Rory v. Rahm either. It's funny, looking at Goddard, he was giving me big Brooks vibes. Yeah. And it was we never got Brooks, Rory really ever together in the final round. So maybe we do get a little bit of that this week. Touching on Jon Rahm real quickly, only 5 players in the field have made the cut in the last 5 opens. He's one of them. He leads all players in terms of strokes gained in the last 5 opens. He's already, I think, one of the more popular picks at the top of the board with good reason. Was there right down the stretch at the end of Live Andalusia. There's not many reasons to not like Jon Rahm other than you're paying the worst price of the 4 majors that we've seen this season so far on him. Are you considering backing him at around 12-1?
I gave it a long thought. He's super trendy. Every sharp mind in golf is either betting him or singing Rahm's praises. I'm not gonna talk anybody off of betting Jon Rahm. I think if you're a casual, golf bettor's not putting a consistent exposure every week, and you want to take 2 of these 3 and take your chances, I think that's perfectly fine. But I didn't go there just because the weather is looking a little less predictable. There could be uncertainty. There could be wave advantages here. It's going to rain most of it seems Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The wind doesn't seem crazy, but that could change at a moment's notice. Mm-hmm. It did impact to an extent, 2019 when we were here. Lowry got a pretty favorable gap in the weather system. It's not the reason that he won, but it's the reason he built such a cushion for himself beyond just playing the golf of his life. So just because of that little the elements at stake, I don't want a short card this week. I want to diversify the exposure. So I'm not there on Rahm. The thing that ultimately, besides the weather, maybe say I'm not going to do it. Still hasn't won this year. He hasn't won since September last year. Fair. And to pay 12-1 on Rahm, and he's always a factor at the Open. I would expect him to be in the mix again. But it's a little odd to me that he hasn't been able to seal the deal. That's not the Rahm that we're used to. He is a little bit of a killer when he gets there on Sunday. So I thought that was interesting. I was on him when Brian Harmon won 2 years ago. He was in it, and it was the opposite. He got hit with the bad weather. He was surviving out there and hitting amazing, incredible shots with all the weather stacked against him. So I have no reservations about him being able to handle bad weather, but I just couldn't get myself there at 12.
Yeah, so 12 is the worst price that John Rahm has been in any of the 4 majors. 22-1 is the best price that you've been able to get on Bryson DeChambeau in the first 4 majors. He's played all of them pretty well, except for the missed cut, obviously, at Oakmont. But, this is a guy just, to me, where I'm stuck is I feel like he spent his whole life mastering the game of golf. In a way, he thinks about golf I think I think about how Phil thinks about golf. The famous interview with David Faraday when he started rattling off numbers. That's how I feel like Bryson thinks about golf. Studying physics, growing up reading everything he could from Ben Hogan, re-engineering every aspect of his game, building his own clubs, 3D printing them, bulking up, trying to just spend his life optimizing and solving this puzzle that is professional golf. And this is the one that has always eluded him, with the exception of St. Andrews. And you can draw your own conclusions as to why he played well at St. Andrews. It just is not a good fit. I don't think anyone, myself included, who's backed him in the last 2 majors is even really considering this price at 22-1. Are you? And if not, what's a fair price on Bryson this week?
Yeah. It's not this, a lot.
If he was 35-1, would you even bet him?
That would be it would definitely be a thought, because we'll get to that range, and there are guys there who I did not think that I would bet, and then seeing the board, I was like, okay, I think we've gone a little too far here.
Okay,
we'll get to that on the next page. But yeah, I mean, should Bryson be shorter than Tommy at the Open? I don't think so. I think event history is very important at the Open. It's like tennis, we're going to Wimbledon, we're playing on grass. It's just because you play well, at the Australian Open on clay doesn't mean that that's going to translate over here. I think that's very relevant at the Open Championship. It's a different style of play. So I don't like what I see when there's only one top 10, and it was at St. Andrews, which hardly even plays as a links course. So he's a fade for me and many others. Now, I faded him at Pinehurst because I thought that missed fairway penalty was going to be very severe. So he actually has a very good track record on the less than driver short courses. So I'm sure he's a good strategist. He will adjust to this course, and he will not have a poor Open Championship resume for the rest of his career. As you were saying, he will figure it out. But right now he's kind of in modern American bomb and gouge mode, and that's what his game is built for. I think Bryson could get to a point where he wins the PGA and he wins the Masters, and then he does a whole moves to Britain and just completely dedicates his life until he's won an Open Championship to whatever it takes to win an Open. But we're not in that chapter of his life yet, so until we are, it's a fade for me.
Yeah, he just plays 1 irons and has 6 wedges in the bag. Yeah, we could see that is version 4 of Bryson DeChambeau. That's a bit down the road. Okay, the next 3 names are pretty intriguing, and this is where I start to kind of hone in and try to make some picks here. Tommy's been awesome. Second place, obviously, at this event last time, like you mentioned, a skill set wise, has a lot of the ideal attributes that you would think about in an Open champion. The biggest question, can he win? And Ben even said it when I talked to him, as he was like, as someone who loves Tommy Fleetwood, and Ben Coley is for sure one of those people, it's there was always a built-in excuse that you could kind of give him, and if you wanted to form a narrative that it wasn't him that just blew it. There wasn't that at the Travelers. That was disheartening for many. Ludwig, skill set, tremendous. Up and down type year, but obviously has the big play ability, I think, to win if he can just avoid untimely triple bogeys. And then you have Xander Schauffele, who I just stuck in this conundrum with Xander. He's playing awesome. Led the field in strokes gained approach again at the Scottish last week. He's hitting it so good. but just not really ever like feeling like he's going to win the tournament.
Yeah.
And it's been a whole year. It feels like he's ready to pop. It feels like this is a very fair price. Like for him coming back here, you would think if you had said last year after he won 2 majors and won the Claret Jug, he's going to return and try to defend at 28-1, I'd be like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what happened to Xander? But he's so well suited. He's second to only John Rahm in terms of strokes gained total at the Open. Plays all majors well. You ramp up the difficulty. You kind of want Xander Schauffele. I think I'm going to get there, but I have some concerns. I wanted to bring this up, and I talked about this actually with Ben a little bit. One of the bigger concerns that I have, and I'm kind of curious if Xander is 100% aware of this, but this is a new tool from Rick Game, and shout out rickrungood.com. This is the radar tool for players, and he's got shot data from every shot these guys have hit this year. Now, these are the 2025 drives. This is where I want to focus for Xander Schauffele. This may be tough if you're following on YouTube to see, but in every year of he's hitting it long, like he's hitting it far. He's averaging 301 carry, but this apex number, Xander always hit this very low penetrating ball flight, which I think worked out great at Open Championships for him. Last year, his average apex with the driver was 97 feet. On his career, 102 feet. That is pretty low by PGA Tour standards. This year, it's 115 feet, nearly 20 feet higher than last year. The launch degree is 10.4 versus 8.5 last year. I don't know if this is intentional. I think this has to do a lot with a club setup thing, but there's a reason that, he's hitting 3 times as many hooks this year off the tee as he was before. I would love to see him lower that ball flight back down and maybe make some swing setup changes. And I think that he'd be much better suited at places, particularly playing links golf off the tee. Get it out of the wind, hit it low. And if you sacrifice 3 yards off the tee, that's all he's really gaining. So be it. Put it on the ground. But that's the one sort of thing that worries me a little bit about Xander, and that I've seen as the biggest change in his game is he's not putting it great, but how high he's hitting it off the tee gives him a bigger dispersion pattern for big misses.
Yeah, no, I think it's a super valid point. This is the first year that his driving accuracy has been so consistently down. You look week over week, he's gaining in distance at the sacrifice of accuracy, and I don't think that's by design. Sometimes you just go into a course and you say, I'm just going to bomb it, and if I'm in the fairway, great, but I'm just going to try to get this out as far as I can. I don't think that's the case. I think he's actually searching for some consistency with that driver. So I kind of share those same concerns. Like for me, I wasn't really thinking that from an outright standpoint, but it was going to be a tough decision for me in one and done when I have Xander. I'm deciding between Xander, Tommy, and Hatton. And I think it's a good spot for Xander, but I'm still kind of waiting for him to show it and trend in. And we still have some bigger events where he's played well that I'm leaning towards saving him for. But yeah, I think, do
you like Tommy?
I do like Tommy.
Okay.
I think it's actually a little preposterous that Bryson is shorter than Xander. I don't think that makes any sense.
Yeah.
like they're pretty similarly decorated players in fairly similar form, and Xander's the defending champion and Bryson's never really played well in an Open. So I think it's fantastic value at 28. I wouldn't fault anyone for taking it. I'm really thinking about Tommy.
Okay.
I think there's either 25 or 28 out there. My take on Tommy has been that he's had to be the villain in 2 of the most boisterous crowds he's going up against in his 2 best opportunities to win over the last few years, that being the playoff against Nick Taylor at the Canadian Open and then the Travelers against Keegan Bradley in New England. So,
and he had to go head to head with Shane Lowry in Ireland last time.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Which, like, you would think, okay, it's the Open Championship. Now we'll have the crowd on our side. And even then, he's still the villain. Yeah. So that was sort of my take after the Travelers. Like, I know Ben Coley is out of excuses for Tommy. I'm gonna give one last excuse. He's been up against the crowd, and if he's gonna get over this massive hump, which is the biggest, like Rory has won the Masters. Now the biggest hump is, can Tommy Fleetwood win a non-DP World Tour event? So that is the next monkey off the back. It would be amazing to see Rory win the Career Slam and Tommy win his first PGA Tour event at the Open in the same season. Like, the emotions that we would see there would be the next closest thing I can think of. Right? Is there a more emotional win that we could see of this release than Tommy's win this week?
No, not an emotional.
I don't think so, right?
That
I was
would be
thinking
it.
like,
In terms of like monkey on your back, I think Rory would be an incredible story, and the fans would get behind him and would make for awesome, compelling TV, as would Shane Lowry. But if those two guys aren't in it, that entire crowd will be pulling for Tommy Fleetwood if he's there. There's no doubt about it. He will have the full support of everyone in a raincoat walking around Northern Ireland.
100%. So and I do think he needs a little Shane Lowry situation himself, where he has this cushion on Sunday.
Up 6. Yeah, get up 6.
But I'm really thinking about it. I'm leaning that way. I want to talk through a couple guys on the next page with you that are, I think, really interesting toss-ups.
Yep.
But I'm thinking about it. I haven't played.
Let's get to the next page. See, I really don't have, we didn't really talk about Ludwig. I don't really have interest in Ludwig, in part because I think like this next group of like 5 names is kind of where it's at, and you're getting a little bit of a bump there. 30-1, we have Tyrrell Hatton and Shane Lowry. Also Victor Hovland right there at 30-1. Colin Morikawa 35, Bobby Mack 35, Matt Fitzpatrick off another great performance at 40-1. You get Joaquin Niemann, Justin Thomas at 50, and then Sepp Straka has been bet down pretty heavily. Now resides at around 55-1, I believe is the best price at both of those books. So who are your names? Let them rip. Let me hear who you're thinking here.
Yeah, with you on Ludwig. I skipped over him, but I'm just,
Yep.
I don't think this is it yet. He'll get there, but I think he needs the experience. Hatton is a guy I wrote a lot about in my preview. I'm all in on it. It's a little cliche to back Hatton in a Links setup. His most recent win was on a Links, course, his third Alfred Dunhill Links championship win. So he plays well in Links. I'm a firm believer that Links golf is different. I think there's a finite number of people in this field who can win a Links golf event. I probably would have said the same thing last week at the Scottish Open and been wrong and crossed Chris Goddard off of that list. However, that's modernized. You can bomb past it. And here you really need experience, precision, a little bit of dog under pressure to be like, not only can I not miss left, I also can't miss right. If I do miss in either of these internal OBs, I got to re-tee it. So that's a very consistent thing with Links golf. So I do lean towards some of these Europeans, these veterans who've seen it. And Hatton has been a factor. He almost won the US Open. He was a factor in a few of the other majors. His one PGA Tour win came at Bay Hill, which was very windy and Links-like. And
that was the year played insanely tough, right?
Yeah, he won it at like, I think, very
-4
near even par. Yeah. So a lot of wind, good wind player. Ironic because he doesn't really have the temperament of somebody that you would think needs to be patient around a golf course, but he's always been good on the Links. I much prefer him to McIntyre on a setup like this if we're talking about like Links savants, because it's more premium on accuracy and approach play. And McIntyre's kind of comes and goes. He's a great long iron player, but I trust Hatton more in those like scoring wedge and short iron ranges. So that was the first bet I put in this week was Tyrrell.
In on Tyrrell as well. 30-1. I actually think of him too as a very good Links player and does have great course history on some of the DP World Tour events, namely the Alfred Dunhill Championship. As Ben brought up, that's kind of a unique one where it's set up a bit awkward and that you're rotating and they try to set it up easy because there's amateurs involved. So be it. I mean, T6 here, the last time they played in 2019 in a very tough condition, shot a 69 on that Sunday. But ironically, he hasn't been great at the Open Championship. I thought I was gonna see a much better record. One top 10 in the last 8 years, and it was at Portrush. I just think this is his time, and he lingered, like you mentioned, for a long time at Quail Hollow before he hit one in that sort of meandering creek up the 18th hole and just combusted, right?
Yep.
He hit a shot on 17 at Oakmont that he frankly shouldn't have hit it there, but combusted. So he lets these situations oftentimes get the best of him. And that's always the concern when you have a bet on him, is that like at any given moment, the hourglass is going to run out of sand and it's over. And I wish that he could control that a little bit better, but I still think one of the best value plays here. And I'm really getting myself amped up to go in on Viktor Hovland. Was there last week. He's hitting it so good, John. Like it's out of the center of the face. His iron play has just been tremendous in terms of what he's been able to do on approach. And if we're leaning on this being the most approach heavy course on the open rota in terms of flying it in the air, landing it on really small greens, of course he's going to have to somehow manage the short game. He's randomly done that on occasion in major championships. Kind of did that at Oakmont. Like he has it in him, although that was like he's much better out of thick rough than the short grass and runoffs that we're going to see here. But I think what you're betting on when you take Viktor is that, yes, he can lose a stroke around the green per round, but he's going to hit 3 more greens than everyone else in regulation and gain 2 strokes on approach. Got to putt it well. I feel like he's in such control of his golf ball that he's going to be able to hopefully navigate and avoid trouble. And then he's got to make some putts. But those 2 guys, Hatton, Hovland, is really where I'm circling, because I don't think Shane Lowry is going to win again. There's so much pressure coming back. He's not playing that well right now. Colin Morikawa is a mess right now. I feel the number for Robert McIntyre should be 50 to 60 to 1 in real world. Fitz is hot right now. Hovland and Hatton are much better players than Matt Fitzpatrick and have been over the last year. Joaquin Niemann struggling. Justin Thomas has never done it in an open. I see reasons to bet Sepp Straka, but I have a feeling I'm going to take those 2, Hovland, Hatton, maybe slice in a Xander, and then go some long shots. Where are you are anyone else here interest you? What do you think about Viktor?
Yeah, so my 1v1 is between Viktor and Tommy, and I keep going back and forth of who's more likely to win this tournament, and I truly don't know. I feel a different way every time I think about it. I think Hovland may very well be the best iron player in this field coming into this week. It's been electric week in, week out, whatever the course is, whether it's a short wedge course, a long iron course, he's got all the shots. All his best results come on the coast in windy conditions. All of his wins are in windy conditions. He's a European. He goes to Lofoten Links every time. He's playing there. He's learning the shots. He's a links guy.
That's right, baby.
So like all good there. But this is the Open Championship that I think puts more weight on the chipping and the short game than any other Open Championship.
I
because
agree.
of the elevations, the runoffs, and everything. You can't really Texas wedge it around here as much as you can at most other open venues. That is the reason that I was so high on Hovland at Oakmont for the US Open last week, because I thought he was going to be able to Texas wedge it around. He pretty much did do that. His around the green numbers from the US Open are a bit jarring and misleading because he chipped in, I think, twice. So he gained like a monstrous amount of strokes around the green, but he was also a little bit of a mess. He had his typical Viktor Hovland moments around the green too. So I have very contrasting views. He's a better closer, I would think, than Tommy Fleetwood. But he had every opportunity to close at Oakmont, and he did absolutely nothing with it. And he let his pairing mate, JJ Spawn, just run past him when it was there for the taking. So he is arguably the best player without a major. If it's not him, it's Tommy Fleetwood or it's Patrick Cantlay. So he's due. He's going to get his due, but I don't think this is the course that I see him winning his Open Championship on. It could be wrong because the approach game is so good, but I'm not really there right now.
Sorry, I'm going to just stop you for 1 second. Has Tommy ever really been like, it feels like when he's getting these T2s, now I know he was in the final group with Shane, but that was never really like a moment where it felt like he didn't come through, or like wasn't up for the moment. He was so far back chasing. I remember like the US Open that he finished T2, I think at Shinnecock to Brooks.
Yeah.
He like stormed early. Like, has he ever really been in it? Because maybe we aren't like, maybe we're too harsh on him, and maybe we should be harsher on Victor, because there's been a couple of them. I mean, he was in that group with Rory at St. Andrews. He did not play very well there. I think he was in the final group with Brooks at Oak Hill. He really should have, like you mentioned, with all the names there, he was the favorite to win the US Open. Like, that should have been the one for the taking for Victor. Was right there at Valhalla as well in the final round in one of the last two groups. So, you know, it's adding up in my brain to like 0 for 4 in like moments where he's like potentially in a tournament and one of the favorites to win on a Sunday. So
Yeah,
maybe we are too harsh on thinking he's like the one that we trust more to come through, and maybe we're not as forgiving to Tommy because of, you know, it's just ingrained in our mind that he's going to finish second or third.
Yes, at Oak Hill and St. Andrews, he was also in the last or penultimate groups.
Yeah,
had opportunities, was within short. Same deal as Oakmont. So he's been in that position. You don't want to fault a guy for putting himself in that position too much. But we're talking about outrights, and I'm gonna like, you know, put my foot in my mouth by saying we're talking outrights, and I'm leaning Tommy Fleetwood. But
well, who else were you saying on this page that you had that piqued your interest?
Yeah, so I think we've fallen too far with Colin, and I know, like, it's not the best stretch that he's in right now, but the man's name is on the Claret Jug. He's in between caddies, we know that, but he's with what's his name? Matt Fitzpatrick's old
Billy
old
Foster.
mate. Yep. That's a huge plus. That's something that's actually, I would say, a value add from JJ, who I love and respect as a caddy, but that Links knowledge here goes a very long way. I think that's very important. It's been the putter letting him down. I was looking at what he did before he won in 2021, and that was the whole, like, my irons aren't interacting with the turf well here, and everybody jumped ship, and his number cratered. You could get a great number on Colin that week. And his 2021 season looked a lot like this one leading into it, where everything was super consistent with the ball striking. The putter was not really there. He did not play well at the Scottish Open. He's finished like T70 at the Scottish Open. So there's a trend, like, if you missed the cut at the Scottish Open, no one's ever won, but he finished T70 at it. So either way, you know, he didn't play well at the Scottish, and it didn't matter because he still won the following week anyway. So I'm not going to write him off for that. And I also was looking at his round. I think he might have purposely hit the eject button because he played well on Thursday and he started slow. And I think he was like, you know what, am I really going to grind on this course the next 2 days, or should I just get out of here and really prep? I know what I have in my game, and let's just move on. I don't need to be here for 4 days because I've already shot myself out of this tournament. Maybe he didn't do that, but that's what I choose to believe. And this is the course that rewards accuracy more than any other. So can you find people like Colin Morikawa at double this price? Yes, I'll probably bet some of those guys too. But this man has won an Open Championship. He's still one of the best approach players in the game. It's all been there from tee to green this week, and I think it's really important, the positioning off the tee, to have a stock shot that you know you can avoid trouble with. And I don't feel like Hovland really has that. You know, pretty much anybody else on this course, like I have on this slide, I have concern. I'll take Straka off of that list. Everybody else, I have concerns. If you have to hit the middle of the fairway, there's a squirrely one in there for all of these guys. But with Colin, I feel like you can live in the fairway, you can hit greens in regulation, and hopefully, you know, his new caddy can help him land a couple more putts.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Those guys, there's a lot of guys that swing very hard. Hovland, Fitzpatrick, Neiman, Thomas, McIntyre, guys that go at it, right? Colin doesn't really, like, it's keeping it in front of him, and it's providing you a reliable shot off the tee. I worry that the putter is so cold right now that he's lost a little bit of confidence with it. Only one finish inside the top 20 since the PGA Championship, and it was the Rocket Classic. Like, he should have probably won that event. But like your point, this is the major for him, right? I don't want to go back 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever, and I went on the tangent of like he needs to get faster. He needs to get faster. Yeah, if you want to win PGAs, you want to like compete and have your best chance to win the Masters or a U.S. Open, get faster. It's not necessarily the case at the Open. You can do it this way. In fact, we've seen Lowry, Harman, Molinari, Morikawa himself. That's like 4 of the last 5 winners have not been long drivers of the ball. Even Cam, when he won, I mean, did it not with the driver, but he wasn't like a longer hitter at the time by any means. So I don't think it's a skill set that is disproportionately rewarded power by that. I mean, in the Open Championship like it is at a US Open or a PGA Championship. So absolutely, I feel like there's got to be probably some built-in value there just knowing that alone. What about Justin Thomas? I don't really have any interest in it. He's just been bad at the majors. I see like a lot of the stuff that he does well, really good wedge play, a hot putter, unlike Morikawa. Like his putter is red hot. I think 12 in a row he's gained strokes putting. And maybe one of the better guys in terms of creativity and hands around the green and sort of understanding shots and slopes and how to get it close to the hole. Drifting number here at 50-1. Does it catch your eye at all?
It caught my eye, and then I looked a little bit closer into it, and I was like, okay, now I understand why he's at 50.
Yeah.
It's no top 10s in his career at the Open. He has a T11, I think. Other than that, really hardly anything inside the top 30. He's going to be OB. There's no way he keeps the ball in play all 72 holes. Like, I think he imploded. I think I remember him imploding in 2023 because there was even more like internal OB there. So you just like you kind of have to take your lumps with JT and understand that like there's going to be a bogey that disrupts a streak of 6 birdies in a row.
Triple. He's going to shoot 76 one day. That's he might shoot 68 3 times, but he's also going to shoot a 77.
Yes, and here those mistakes are so exaggerated because you're re-teeing with the OB. So I'm not interested. It's drifted to a fair point to have that conversation. If you're like, okay, but it's Justin Thomas. I'm not going to go there. There's probably on the next page. There's guys who like.
Let's go to it. I'll bring it up now. Who do you like?
So like. Cantlay would be a guy who I would rather play than JT. I'm not going to bet him, but I've seen Cantlay go to like 65, 70, and then we're really having a conversation here because he plays well at Pebble Beach all the time. He plays well in all these positional die courses, these less than driver courses. We always chalk him up as a strategist. That's how it should have gone at Oakmont, and it didn't. So I'm probably not going to bet him, but I'm just kind of commenting that if you're buying the dip, I think there's better value on the dip in Cantlay than I see with JT. I love Henley. I think he's a very popular bet this week, a sensible bet when we're talking about accuracy, point and shoot golf. That's kind of what this could become. He can lead the field in the strokes gained approach, which may be the deciding factor here. And his resume in majors has been really good, surprisingly. Like one of the biggest, I don't know, like image changes in all of golf is Henley the choker to Henley the Ryder Cup lock and major betting card lock all of a sudden. I was sort of having a 1v1 on Cantlay versus Henley, and I was also kind of throwing Adam Scott in that mix. And I feel best about Henley, just looking at his body of work. He's been pretty good at, like last year, he was in the mix at the Open too. Plays well in the majors, plays well in the positional courses. So very popular bet, makes sense. I'm probably gonna ride with Henley this week.
Yeah, Henley, I was very surprised when I ran the BetSperts model that I pulled up earlier. I have Henley rated out better than Rory for me. Fifth in the model that I sent out earlier. Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of these guys I like you can even go down to Scott and like Ryan Fox, and I'm like, those guys have a chance to outplay Justin Thomas this week. Love how they both hit the small ball flight, have both hit a reliable shot, understand and have had good history at Open Championships. I'll say this, anyone out there, if you want a head-to-head Spieth, Thomas, I want Jordan Spieth.
Yeah, I'm with you on
I
that.
talked to Ben a little bit about this. I didn't get the chance to read his article today, but he kind of had a sheepish smile, like he's been waiting for Jordan Spieth for a while. I loved it coming into this week. I hated to see him withdraw at the Travelers, but saw him speak about it, said he was fine 2 days later. It was one of those neck flare-ups where you just get out of sight and you can't turn your head. And I've been there. Certainly, I feel like every 6 months I'm there with my golf game, and you can't play golf like that. Spieth's been very sneaky, and 12 straight events, he's gained strokes on the field. That's his longest run in a long time. 7th at the Memorial was really good. Struck the ball insanely well at Oakmont. Creativity, hands around the green, understanding of how to hit different shots, and it's why he's been awesome at Links. I talked about Rahm and Xander being the top 2 guys who, in terms of strokes gained, who have made the last 5 cuts. Spieth's third. So he's right there. He's almost often in the mix here, and that's over the last 5 years. That's not even counting his victory at Birkdale, right?
Yeah.
So it's not even in the mix. So those 5 guys, just for reference, that have made the last 5 cuts in terms of strokes, total strokes gained. Rahm plus 49, Xander plus 42, Spieth plus 41, Matt Fitzpatrick plus 22, and Robert McIntyre plus 20. So he's been twice as good as McIntyre and Fitz. I think he's coming into form. I think this is actually like a random opportunity to get a fair price on him. Was on Baby Watch, didn't play the Scottish. I like him this week. I haven't made that bet yet, but I'll probably be trying to like take some Spieth matchup markets and maybe top 20. The guy here that I did bet was Pat Reed. Wesley said it, 90 to 1 was my first bet this morning on the board. Was waiting for it. The more I hear about short game, the more I like Pat Reed. The more I see about confidence in form incoming. He's a guy that I trust has been like working extremely hard and is dedicated to peaking right now. Understands the magnitude of what he's playing for and what his goals are, like, say, a month from now. And the way to punch his ticket is to win or podium or play really freaking well at the Open Championship on a course that is probably the most unique around the green in the Rota. So I'm going to take him 90 to 1. I feel like that's a very fair price for how he's been performing this season in the majors, been performing at Live. He's at such a disadvantage off the tee, but the guy shows up at Augusta National and just chips his way to a top 5 seemingly on command. So what are your thoughts? Do you like Pat Reed? I mean, there's some names here. It's a huge drift on Hideki. Sam Burns played really well. Scott Fox. We didn't even talk about Brooks, who played well last year. And Ricky, obviously, his caddy, grew up on Portrush. There's a lot of guys here who I think you could, if you wanted to, make a case for at a pretty big betting price.
Yeah. This is like kind of the drift zone, right? It's like a lot of good names that aren't playing that great that have fallen into here. Not a lot of guys playing above themselves here. So a lot of buy low opportunity. I think Spieth is really interesting. It was probably the birth of his second kid more than the injury that kept him aside. That's now, done.
That's 100% what it was. Yeah, I listened to an interview. I think it was like Kay Adams. I think it was like an interview with him, and he was like, I was fine 2 days later. Like, I feel great. I'm back to practicing. My swing is in a really, really good spot, and it looks like it too. But he was worried about when he was going to be able, if he was even going to be able to get over here until Tuesday or Wednesday. So it was nice to see him early morning practice round with JT. Anyone wants that side action, I'll take Spieth.
It's a really sneaky season Spieth is having. Looking at his numbers, like I didn't feel like he was having as good of a year as he has. I don't. Is he on the outside looking in at the Ryder Cup team? Because legacy wise, you would think he's in with the boys, but he hasn't quite looked himself. But then you look at the numbers, and it's like, I don't know. Like he's kind of
on the outside looking in right now. I think part of it too is it's like, I mean, he shouldn't have been on the last team.
Yeah.
And he got it over Keegan.
Yeah.
Like it should have been Keegan. It shouldn't have been Spieth. Now it's like I don't know. Maybe I'm sure he doesn't hold a grudge like that, but just an interesting sort of dichotomy and dynamic there between those two guys.
Yeah. So interesting. So he's got a lot to prove this week. I think if he contends at this major, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, maybe we should have Spieth on the team. With you on Reed, I was on the tarmac. We touched down at JFK, and I put that bet in.
There you
I
go.
was waiting to get back to my friendly DraftKings and whichever accounts in the friendly confines of New York after being away for a week, and I was like, please let that number hold until I get home, because that's crazy. He's in great form, Patrick Reed.
Yeah.
Won 2 weeks ago. He's been playing great in the majors, was in the mix at the Masters, top 20 at the US Open. Approach play has been really good. Not really known for his approach play, and he's really taken, with a grain of salt on Live, but like he's really spiking. The data golf numbers are showing.
Tighten it up.
And this could be a short game contest. Absolutely. If there is going to be weather at a links course and distance doesn't matter as much. So he's got so much to prove. Like he checks every box for me, and it's a great value. I think if he was 50-1, people would still think about it. Would I go as far as to say I would take him over JT at 50-1? Maybe. The open history is better. So I really like Reed. I'm with you. I think that's a sharp call. And Adam Scott, I think I'm going to go back there. He was in the mix. Great open history. The Australians in general just have a good fit for the links. They know how to flight a ball in the wind. I highlighted his comments after the US Open, just talking about his career feeling unfulfilled and not being Hall of Fame worthy. Like, there may be nobody who personally needs the win more than Adam Scott, just because he's kind of getting up there. He doesn't know how many more opportunities he's going to have seriously contend in a major. Like Tommy, yes, he's desperate for a win, but there's always next year. He's in the prime of his career. I actually feel like the urgency is at an all-time high for Adam Scott, and he's playing some of the best golf he has in years. So I'd love to see him get it done. It's one of those things where I'm almost betting with my heart between him and Tommy, because it's such a good story. But I'm rooting for him, and I actually think 80-1 is a great price with the form that he's in right now.
Trying to see. Oh yeah, he did miss the cut last time in 2019. Not that it matters. I was just going back to that. The other thing, I would have really loved this course setup for Corey Connors. Still a bit worried about the wrist.
Yeah, I feel the
wrist
same.
Injuries are bad news bears for golfers, and apparently he hurt it pretty bad at Oakmont. Played last week, lost like 2 strokes on approach at the Scottish, so don't love that. I'm going to have to probably show some self-control and not bet Brooks when this eventually gets up to 100-1, but we'll see. Don't be surprised on Wednesday if you see him on the old card post. Let's get to those super bomb long shots, 100-1 and above. You've got U.S. Open champion JJ Spawn in the mix, Ben Griffin, who's been playing great, Scottish Open champion Chris Gotterup. Tons of guys here. Cam Young, 110. Keegan Bradley, 100. Harris English, who's been playing awesome. I've been on Harris for the last couple of weeks. He's not a great links track record, but I almost feel beholden to keep that bet in case he mixes. You talk short game, I kind of gravitate towards someone like Minwoo Lee, who's really awesome at it. Also has Shane's caddy now.
Ooh. Yeah, good
caddied for him
call
at the last Open Championship. So some nice little insight there. I'm sure that Minwoo Lee, just a lot of options here. And this is the major championship where I think, you can feel a little bit better about drifting into triple digits. John, what do you make of this range? Do you have anyone, even if they're not on this list here, that you kind of think is worthy of a look?
I got 2 guys. One is this list, and one looks like he's even further beyond this list. Nick Taylor. What is he? 5 consecutive top 25s leading in. Won the Sony Open this season. Waialae is a solid comp. It's almost the exact yardage to this course. Windy course. It's not crazy weather that he won this in, but it is, still a decent comp in its own right. Has played high octane environments well. The results have not been there in majors whatsoever. So fair for him to be 150 to 200-1 in this tournament for that reason. But if things are going to be different at an Open for Nick Taylor, it's going to be at an event like this where it's more ball striking heavy and less like imagination, using the ground and all of that stuff that hasn't worked for him in the Open. He's won his National Open. That's like a 5th major for him. So I feel like he's battle tested. He's won the Waste Management. Again, I feel battle tested there. He's won at Pebble Beach. So he can win at iconic venues. He's winning on the comp courses. It almost reminds me of what Max Homa had started to do, where he's like stocking up wins and never doing it in majors. And then he had one good major performance and all of a sudden he's contending at, Augusta in back-to-back years. So
yeah,
he just got his first career top 25. Nick Taylor did at the US Open. That was his first major, top 25 3 starts ago. So maybe that's a sign of more things to come. So I'm gonna roll the dice with him there. And then my other guy, Lucas Glover. I love Lucas Glover this week. Love him.
What's his
Love him.
price? Like, is he up 200?
250.
Wow.
Which you can still get. He's coming off back-to-back top 10s. He has finished top 10 at the 3 top comp courses this season that I would look at on the PGA Tour. We talked about the Players. We talked about Pebble, and then Innisbrook for the Valspar, I think, is also a pretty good comp here. Very similar yardage, a lot of blind like approaches there, elevation changes, and just an emphasis on hitting fairways and like mid-iron approaches in the wind. So a lot of things there that I like to see. And he finished top 10 at all 3 of those. Now he's in good form. He finished top 20, I believe, here at Portrush in 2019. A major champion many years ago, but a great ball striker. He's top 10 in driving accuracy, and he's top 10 in strokes gained approach. And those are the first 2 things I'm looking for this week. And he's 250 to 1. So I really like the last thing is like, yes, Lucas Glover is an abomination on the greens. This is a completely different surface. So if you're looking for a change of pace, this is like the Goddard effect. I'll say it again. Like, it wasn't working for him on bent grass and Bermuda and POA in the United States. And then he found fescue, and all of a sudden he like led the field in putting. So it can happen. It might be a welcome change of pace. 250 to 1. He could be this year's Brian Harman.
Love it. Great call out there on Lucas Glover. I didn't realize he had a top 20 here. Almost forgot that he was a major champion as well. Glover, straight flusher. I'm kind of like coming around to Minwoo Lee. Like you brought up some of the Australian stuff and understanding how to play it low into the wind. He's got that like little 3-iron stinger that he hits. So awesome around the greens. I think Bo on the bag could be a nice little help for him. We'll see if he ends up making it. Zach had a question here. I just wanted to get your take on it, John. Needs to figure out one and done. I know that you've been awesome at one and done this season. He's got Victor, Bobby Mack, Hideki, Straka, Henley. Vic is the obvious one, but he's also a nice hold for St. Jude or BMW's at Caves Valley. Yeah, he could be a good hold there. I would say, Zach, like, have you exhausted your live guys? Because like, if you can take Hatton here. I don't mind McIntyre or even Reed. Like, I'd throw him in consideration here if you need to like jump up some ground. But I think Hovland's the one out of this list for me. Hovland, McIntyre probably 1, 2. But I would say if you've got live guys on the table, which you probably do, use Tiro. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I go Vic here of this list. A couple guys on this list have good history at St. Jude. Straka lost in that playoff to Zalatoris a couple of years ago. Hideki's lost in a playoff at least once here, and he won last year. So those are 2 good options for St. Jude. And then BMW just looks like it's going to be, another like bomb and gouge fest. It was really like Patrick Cantlay was such an aberration that year because he gained the most strokes anyone's ever gained putting in a week. But you look at the rest of that leaderboard and it was like Bryson and Rory, all the bombers. So any bombers you have at your disposal, even like a Ben Griffin, you probably might still have available. Like he'll do well there. So you'll have a lot of options there. I wouldn't be too concerned about wasting some of your best bullets for the last major of the year.
John, amazing insight as always. We dearly hope that you all enjoyed the program this evening and have this season. make sure to subscribe over to the YouTube channel if you have not yet. Preferred Lines on YouTube. It would mean the world to us if you want to share this week's episode with a friend. There's a couple of links in the bio to support the show as well. John, awesome talking to you, man. Full cards for both of us will be out this Wednesday. I think we're circling around a lot of the same names. Good luck, brother. I hope you hit a winner.
Yes, sir. We're due. We've been circling the drain the last couple of weeks. We've both been on the same guys who've been in the mix. So we're due. I think this is our week.
It's time. Fourth major of the season. You guys are the absolute best. Thanks for checking out the Preferred Lines podcast. On behalf of John Haslbauer, I'm Joe Idone. Enjoy the early morning Open Championship at Royal Portrush. It's going to be a good one. Best of luck this week. We'll catch you guys next week for the 3M Open. Special guest appearance on the show next week. I don't want to spoil anything, but we got something sort of fun in the works when we head back here over to North America. Great to see you guys tonight. Thanks again, John. We'll catch you next time. We're out of here. Peace.